Hey Michael, how's it going?
Hey, Kirah, it's going super great. How are you?
Good, good. Yeah, super excited for your talk for Fresh Voices. But first, let's talk a little bit about you and what your offerings are and how you use astrology.
Awesome. Well, once again, Kirah, I'm really grateful for you giving me this opportunity to be here and share my practice. I mean, Fresh Voices in the summer was super amazing. And what I did at that presentation was I spoke a lot about my horary practice because that's a very big part of what I do. Horary within a traditional medieval slash Renaissance perspective, but also horary from a Uranian astrology perspective. And my practice is really all branches of astrology through the lens of medieval slash Renaissance as well as Uranian. So it's kind of a little bit crazy that I do this mashup between these traditions, but essentially it's horary astrology, natal astrology, electional astrology, and mundane astrology from a medieval Renaissance perspective and a Uranian perspective. And I bring all of them together in my client work. And it's super cool to be able to hold these two very diverse traditions within myself and to make them work, which is really the foundation of everything I do to show people that, hey, even though these things on the surface seem to be very, very light years apart, they complement each other in powerful ways. And in my opinion, they really set us up to be even better astrologers.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, Uranian astrology is something I literally know absolutely nothing about. And I feel like a lot of contemporary astrologers don't know anything about it. So, yeah, I mean, is anyone else doing that? Is anyone else blending blending Renaissance astrology with Uranian, or do you know of anyone else?
You know, the thing is that the Uranian astrology group has really built itself within the modern astrology perspective. So you find
Mm-hmm.
more modern astrologers who are readily availing themselves to the study of things like Uranian astrology. And an offshoot of the Uranian school is cosmobiology. And a lot more people have been exposed to cosmobiology throughout the years and the use of midpoints and that sort of thing as a standalone subject within itself because one, the cosmobiologists, they just had better authors. So when you look at the Uranian textbooks, it's like, oh my God, burn my eyes out because it tends to be not the most inviting subject on the surface, and there really hasn't been this proliferation of Uranian books in the same way as there's been cosmobiology books. So I'm saying all that to
Mm,
say that there's a lot more people in the world practicing like cosmobiology and using midpoints because it's an easier thing to kind of just drop into your regular astrology. Oh, my sun moon midpoint is here, or
right.
my Mars Saturn midpoint is here, and it's
Mm-hmm.
doing all these things. But it's a different thing entirely to have the entire system of Uranian astrology to work with and essentially to play with. And for me, it is something to play with because if you have a good astrology base, whatever your astrology base is, it's a wonderful complement and it just brings your chart alive in completely new ways.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. Well, so tell us a little bit more about your talk and what day is it? It's Saturday, and I should know this. I'm like, I could do okay, yeah, it's the 21st of November, Saturday the 21st, 1 p.m. Pacific. Yeah, tell us about your talk, the title, and what you're going to be presenting on.
Okay, so the talk is going to be on Uranian astrology, and I am absolutely positive that the final rendition of the talk that I chose to go with was Uranian astrology and the hidden universe within your chart. And in my mind, I was turning over titles, and I wanted to call it like micro astrology because people have referred to it as that before, that it's like putting this microscope on your chart and
Mm,
seeing all these tiny patterns that otherwise would go unnoticed. But essentially, the talk is going to be just about that, how Uranian astrology as its own practice can really highlight relationships within our charts that we would never have dreamt of. For a lot of us who've come from a traditional astrology background, we get very caught up on the fact that I have Mars in the second house and it's in detriment, or I have Saturn conjunct my IC and it's doing this
Mm-hmm.
to my hoo-ha. And we get really tied up within this astrology of placement. Or my Venus is in Virgo, or my Jupiter is in Scorpio. We get very caught up in this astrology of the placement of things, but we haven't really been exposed to an astrology of dynamic, energetic, action oriented relationships within our charts. And I think that that's really the main difference between Uranian astrology and traditional astrology. That traditional astrology teaches us how to see these macro patterns and how to really get, a sense of this is my chart, and I know that this is my chart because my Jupiter is in the ninth house or my whatever is on the midheaven. But Uranian astrology shows us this energetic interplay of all of these pieces, and you realize, oh shit, my Jupiter isn't just in the ninth house, but my Jupiter is everywhere. And here's
Mm-hmm.
how I can interact with my Jupiter from this perspective, or here's how I can interact with my Jupiter if I look at it from the perspective of my moon, or if I look at it from the perspective of my sun. Here's what my Jupiter looks like when I'm standing on the sun. And so the Uranian system, it really gives us these multiple frameworks to look at our charts from, and it really layers information within our regular chart that wouldn't have otherwise been available to us. So I'm not going to be able to do everything within the talk because the talk is like 45 minutes. It's
Like an
45 minutes.
hour. Like an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, around that.
So truthfully, I'm not going to be able to lay out all of this stuff. I mean, and as a complete aside, so much of the astrology we practice today has a Uranian foundation. The midpoints
Mm,
is one piece of it, but solar arc directions, people who use solar arc directions, which has been called the easiest predictive method, like that also comes to us through the Uranian system.
mm,
And also the composite chart, like this whole concept that we have in Western astrology of doing synastry by taking the composite of two charts, putting them together and making a mashup chart, like that is
mm-hmm.
purely Uranian astrology. So I think that one part of my presentation is going to be just showing people like how so much of the astrology that we already practice has this Uranian basis, but also exposing people to like the really fundamental rudiments of Uranian astrology. What is the 90-degree dial? Why does it look the way it looks? How can I put my planets on it? And how can I begin to find these dynamic relationships within my chart that otherwise wouldn't have been accessible to me?
So exciting because I just feel like, yeah, who wouldn't want to learn a different way of looking at their chart? I'm really pumped for that. So, yeah, thank you so much for offering this talk. It's going to be something obviously totally new to Fresh Voices, but I think just like really eye opening for a lot of people. So, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm really looking forward to this as well. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think that the biggest thing that people will take away from this is that it's really about the planets. Like if we were to strip our astrology down to its absolute fundamental anything, like we wouldn't be able to look up in the sky and see the signs of the zodiac because we know our conception of the zodiac, whether we're using a tropical system or a sidereal system. And so we wouldn't be able to look up at the sky and see the signs of the zodiac or see the houses or anything. But what we would see is the planets.
Hmm.
And that is really the undercurrent and the lifeblood of Uranian astrology. That when we strip away our astrology of all of the things that we have attached to it, we end up with the planets. So really, can we deepen our understanding of what the planets mean? Not just I'm a Taurus and that makes me this way, or you're a Scorpio and that makes you that way, but can we go back to this primal way of interacting with astrology, which is purely planet based, and really put more meat on our planetary bones so that we can interact with the language of the planets in a much deeper and a more sophisticated sort of way, so that if we don't have our identity as a Taurus or a Scorpio or a Leo or a Virgo to hold on to, what do you maintain as your identity as a Martian person with a tinge of Neptune, or a Venusian person with a tinge of Pluto? How can we bring it back to that? So I think that that's really what people are going to get out of